My idea for Fallout 5 was going to be, well, I really don't think that this particular idea would really be Fallout 5. I see it more and more most likely to be an idea for maybe a game or two games that are going to be or would be released, but between Fallout 4 and Fallout 5. And these particular games are going to take place in the pre-war or during the Great War as it happens. So we know that from Fallout 1 all the way to Fallout 4, there has always been little hints in showing, like secret areas, and also you can get into these little zones that were really of the pre-war era, such as like in Fallout 4, you start out in the pre-war era, but yet if you use a lot of the certain codes, I'm not going to tell you because actually I don't know them off the top of my head, but off my head or on the back of my head or anything like that shit. So I've seen it to where since the codes can exist, they do exist where you can actually access the pre-war era, the full map so you can run around. Yeah, these areas do exist in all the games. The pre-war era does exist. So my idea is, why not have a game take place within the pre-war era? Would it work? Well, you can do is like probably a mini game about uh, about the killer, the mysterious killer that we already did that in Fallout 3, with the scientific project where the lone survivor goes and searches for his dad, finds his dad hooked up to a machine, and find out that everyone that's actually survivors from the Great War are stuck in, well, the Matrix, as it were. And he goes in trying to rescue his dad. And one of the simulation things in there was to assume as this mysterious killer that existed within the pre-war other mythos. You know, maybe a game that deals with that, or more of something along like that just before the war. I think that to be more of a mini game or concept that it's a good idea, but what type of conflict or story? Maybe um, it's actually about the project of the time jump project. You probably don't know about this. You might run into it. I think it was in Fallout 1, but I definitely believe it was in Fallout 2. Either way, it was where your character did was find a way to actually travel backwards in time. Because it's been a long time since I played Fallout 1 and 2, so I'm not too sure which one it was. But basically, you travel backwards in time, and what you end up is in the pre war era, but you're in a military base, and they're trying to do is find out what is the future and how to stop the situation that's they know which is going to happen, which is the Great War. How are we going to survive? You know, they figured, okay, we'll go beyond the point of where the war was and send people from the past to the future and repopulate it and take over the world that way. And the other idea that I got from it was that they went into the future trying to see whatever great technologies and what mistakes happened and trying to go back into their own time and change history. Well, you could do that, but it's kind of like one of these little things. Hidden Easter eggs, I know. In Fallout 2, you reach an area where you meet all the other people that you've wronged or killed over the course of the game, and they kind of look down upon you and whatever, and they say shit whatever. Because that wasn't like Fallout 2. All right. Yeah. So we have evidence about the pre-war, existing, and it pops up with all the games. So my idea is that, have a Fallout game or in between of the pre-war, or maybe it starts off like beginning of the pre-war, shit happens, but your character, or ends up during this great catastrophe of the war. They can get into a vault or anything like that, and you're fighting for control. You know, that's one idea I've had, where it would be more of a first-person shooter, but also with RPG and implements about this, to where I'd see that type of a game would work well with online communities. Having turn into like a true MMO where everybody's like trying to save the world or whatever, maybe, or have it just as how all Fallout games are, a one-person experience of the game with multiple storylines of your history of the character. The other idea about that would be really that you do get into a vault, but you have to survive. Living in the vault when the catastrophe is happening, but you still send out people to fight off enemies or whatever. The Red Scare. The Red Enemy. The communists. From China and also from Russia. Remember, this is a game, so that's what it's about. So those are kind of my ideas about what it could be. Then there was that one family that we seen in. I've seen it online about it, the storyline, where you find bits and pieces of the clues about this one particular family, where they were trying to get into safety, and this was during the Great War. When the explosions were happening, they were trying to stay safe, and wherever they were for a while. Each one of them was a code to get into. I think it was a vault or something or some shit. It was military, bunker as it were, or vault, whatever you want to consider it. But the father went fucking nuts. Screwed the whole fucking thing up. Everyone was safe, and the father kept on going in and out, and leaving the fucking door open. It's like, God, you're radiating your own people. It's like shit, you know. So maybe an actual game where you play out that story about what happened or some shit, or whatever. But I still see that Fallout 5, if it's not going to be about the pre-war and it's going to continue further into the future, well, if you're going to, it looks like that's what it should be or going to be, then Fallout 5 should definitely be in the future, but taking place like maybe 100 years more, like in the late 2300s, maybe closer to 2400s or so. Keep it away from 2277. It's like, okay, maybe 2377, 2477, or maybe next Great War between what is left of the Chinese that still want to struggle on to whatever. Or, well, if it's going to be that about, war in America like this, after the Great War, how all the Fallout games, then, I was thinking it's kind of like a little ridiculous. Maybe the story takes place in, maybe in the South or in the Midwest. Because we've seen it like on the West Coast, California, and then towards into Nevada, going into Nevada. Because remember, the original Fallout was by Interplay, and they're a California-based company, so Of course, they did mainly Northern California, where they're from. And then you had was Fallout 3, which Bethesda on their East Coast, but yet they kind of continue the storyline. So their first thing was in Fallout 3, DC. Their second game that they produced of it, Bethesda really made themselves was Fallout 4. A lot of people say, oh, about New Vegas. If any true fans of the series will know that Fallout Vegas was made by another company, which they decided Vegas and continuing on more of the original story from Fallout 1 and 2, and then going more into, okay, let's continuing on about the Vegas storyline around there and the NCR and all that, what happens with them. Because that's how we were introduced with some of the factions with the other groups. Well, Bethesda is still more Eastern. So the next game was, of course, Boston. But how about maybe New York? New York? Or I'm thinking would be really interesting is somewhere in the Midwest. Seeing what happens in the Midwest, the fall of humanity and how people survived. And would it continue? Maybe the city of Seattle, as in Washington, maybe a story about that. Or, well, in the Midwest, I would say St. Louis. The battle for, or maybe it's a battle for the Twin Cities. Instead of calling them, by their real names, just call it the Twin Cities, where it's completely collapsed. But yet, that's where the game takes place, of those two cities across the lake mirroring each other, where they're fighting for control of the area or whatever. Seattle, Washington. That would actually be an interesting story. Well, I'm from California, Southern California, and for me, I still think that LA is a good story based area, like Los Angeles County and Orange County, not really San Diego, because if you really think, well, if you think about it, it would be destroyed by a nuclear holocaust. But okay, how the history line of Fallout mirrors ours, except for certain events, like certain actions, things that happened in World War II. There was minor differences that split the timeline, and then more so, which was actually they specified was the transistor. We have the transistor; they didn't come up with it. Technology diverges. They're more of 1950s, but if you notice, Fallout accelerated further than us. They created was uh, technology such as advanced computer systems for where you could literally live your whole entire life in a matrix system. They actually created this. They created also because everything was nuclear based, atomic powered. So you actually had the atomic car. Actually, we came up with it, but U.S. government actually kind of the stranglehold of the copyrights and patents over the shit, so nobody can actually use it. They like hit it. It's like hell no, we don't want anybody with a car like that. You can radiate people or blow themselves up. Boom. Really don't want that. And other things that Fallout had was okay. The Mr. Handy robots. You think, oh, that's cool. Really? Okay, a firing jet underneath it. You say that's safe, or it has buzzsaws. That's it. Till then.